Good morning, everybody. I'm Nola. It's the 22nd of November, and I'm coming to you from the Gold Coast hinterland in Australia. This is a particularly pretty part of the world, and where I'm sitting, I'm in between two mountains, a mountain range on the left and Tamborine Mountain on the right. And it's famous here for owls. This is the Valley of the Owls where I'm sitting in Canungra, and it's one of the most peaceful places I think I've ever been in my life. I came here in 2013 to write my memoir, and it wasn't until recently when I was driving along one of the country highways looking for a Peace Ranch property that I realised that this is where I came to write my memoir. So the synchronicity of finding this place again and realising that this is where I needed to be setting up the world's first Peace Ranch was obvious to me. This week and in the last few weeks since the US election, as no doubt many of you are aware, there's a lot of power and control imbalance happening. And in my first part of No Boxing Allowed, the first book that I wrote about great leadership and personal power and self-actualization, self-realization, and through that self-intelligence, I talk a lot about power and control imbalances. There is a chapter about command and control and how to use power effectively in C2 organizations. But in the beginning part, I talk about power and what it is. So personal power, how you recognize it and harness it and channel it, and also positional power and how important it is to recognize positional power, the pros and cons of both. Earlier in the previous videos that I've done, you will see there are segments specifically about personal power and positional power, and dotted all the way through this year I've talked about various components of power and what it means. But there's one section in part one of No Boxing Allowed that I want to read to you, and this is the book that I'm talking about. In the section on personal power, I say here, when you push too hard to gain power, you actually lose it. Now, all the way through my book, I've got, and it's this book mainly, there's some in my second book for women and men in terms of change management. I have little snippets that you can flick through the book and read, and it kind of reminds you of key messages that I'm wanting you to remember and then apply in your own life. What we're talking about here is the misunderstanding that a lot of people have about their personal power. And when you find people pushing, you may not necessarily realize they're pushing. And in fact, children can be the perfect example of push, push, push to get what they want. And that's the personal power being misused and therefore pushing a selfish agenda. Now, with the current President of the United States, what we're seeing playing out is what I've talked about in previous videos. He's not prepared to accept that his truth is not the reality of the now. So his truth appears to be all about, I'm winning no matter what. I have to have what I want because I don't know how to deal with a reality that's not what I want. When it comes to pushing personal power, it's that relentless, it's not necessarily selfish, but it's a relentless, almost obsession about what I want to see happen has to happen. And oftentimes we find ourselves in situations, and there's a Harley Davidson rider who's taking off up the hill. Apologies for the noise. What we find happening in some situations is that people do have to push in order to get a point across. But when it's relentless, that's when it gets borderline into the bullying and harassment. So what we're seeing playing out, where you've had had people vote in an election, an outcome has been derived, there needs to be a transition of persons in power from one to the other and from administration to administration. And there's a lot involved, as many of you would know. There's an awful lot involved in being able to go from one political party in power to another political party in power. All of the restructuring, the machinery of government changes that occur. And when you don't let go, which is what I talked about last time, when you don't let go of the need to have control, that's when the pushing becomes most evident. But all you're doing is pushing against universal energy. So no matter, if I sit here and I look and I think, my goodness, there's beautiful birds in the honeysuckle tree over there. There was a rosella that sat down next to me on the concrete floor of this particular little awning that I'm sitting under. If I was pushing at you, then I would be sort of in your face. It's a bit like my tone of voice would be getting louder and louder and stronger, and that means that the message that you're wanting to put out there, you feel like it's not getting through. That's why people push. But quite rightly, people need to be able to push for justice to be served. And if we didn't have people pushing at certain times, then we wouldn't see wrongdoers brought to justice. We wouldn't see criminals be charged with crimes that they've committed. So it's about finding the fine balance. It's about walking the tightrope of discernment in order to determine whether your pushing is suitable to the circumstances or whether it's excessive. But ultimately, when you push too hard and for too long, universal energy will actually push back on you. And that's what's happening at the moment with the current president of the United States. The universal energy of no, no, no is pushing back on that person. So you kind of got to read universal messages in a way. If you're getting yes, 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 then the universe is letting you have the balance of power. It's allowing you to step forward to what you need. If you're getting no, 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 then you're pushing too hard and the universe is giving you subtle messages back. That's probably the best analogy that I can give to you, and I hope that you can use this time to look at the individuals who are in front of you on the television, who you might be listening to on the radio, and get a handle on whether they're being bullying in the way that they're pushing with their power, or whether they're actually allowing fate to take over. If when people don't recognize the signs, that's when you can keep repeating the same errors. And I would like you to start to be discerning in how you recognize the signs. I look forward to seeing you next weekend, and hopefully I'll be able to show you some birds. As time goes on, there will be much quieter places that I identify, and hopefully many more beautiful views for you to see. Have a great day. Bye for now.